Ever get the feeling, like the word genius gets tossed around maybe a little too much these days?
Yep.
I mean, you hear it everywhere,
Right.
right? One minute it's the latest tech whiz kid, then it's someone who can I don't know, solve a Rubik's cube in under a minute blindfolded.
Yeah. Yeah. You start to wonder if it's like lost all meaning.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
enough to make you wonder, what does being a genius actually even mean anymore?
definitely.
Well, funny you should say that because that's exactly the kind of debate that two people we're diving into today got into, Carlos and Casey.
Oh, interesting.
They have some pretty strong opinions on
I
genius.
like it already. So who are these people?
Well, let's just say they don't always see eye to eye.
Intriguing. I'm ready for this debate. So what sparked it?
Well, we've got Casey on one side, and she has a very, shall we say, specific idea of what makes a genius.
Okay, I'm not listening.
It's like, imagine someone saying, you can't just decide to be taller, right?
Right.
Well, that's kind of how Casey sees genius. She views it as this inherent quality, something you're pretty much born with.
Okay, so a very much nature over nurture perspective on genius.
Exactly. She's all about that measurable, can't fake it kind of intelligence. Think IQ tests and those folks with off the chart scores.
So the classic view of genius. Makes sense.
Exactly. And to be fair, she has some pretty strong examples to back up her point. Like she brought up Ilya Sutskever, one of the top minds in AI right now. She considers him a true genius.
Interesting, interesting. So where does the disagreement come in?
Ah, well, that's where Carlos comes in. He has a very different take on the whole thing.
Oh, I knew there had to be another side to this.
He believes there are all these different types of genius beyond just, being book smart.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Tell me more.
Well, he used this example of a genius breakdancer.
A genius break dancer. I like where this is going.
Right. It challenges that whole singular focus on IQ as the be all and end all of genius.
Absolutely. So it's about more than just like raw processing power. It's about how you apply it.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting because he tries to connect this to, get this, the big five personality traits.
Okay, you're going to have to refresh my memory on that one.
Right. Openness, conscientiousness, that sort of thing.
Right, right. Like those core personality dimensions.
Yeah, exactly. So he's suggesting that maybe certain combinations of these traits could point to a greater potential for success, similar to how, a high IQ might.
Fascinating. So like a particular blend of personality traits could be its own recipe for genius.
Right. And I will say there was a bit of friction when he brought this up with Casey because she has a much more black and white view of things.
I can imagine. So while she's all about that innate brilliance, Carlos is exploring different flavors of genius, so to speak.
Exactly. She's less comfortable with labeling any one characteristic, whether it's IQ or certain personality traits, as inherently better than another.
Got it. So they're coming at this from two totally different angles. This is getting good. One thing that really caught my attention was this idea Casey brought up about a genius tax.
A genius tax? I don't think I've heard of that one. What's that all about?
Well, it's kind of like this. She was saying that having a high IQ, while it might seem like, you won a genetic lottery or something, isn't always a walk in the park.
Interesting. It's like that saying, be careful what you wish for. You might think you want something, but...
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
we tend to, put geniuses on this pedestal, right? But Casey's point was that it can actually be a burden sometimes.
A burden. How so?
Well, she used this analogy, right? And she was saying that a high IQ is kind of like having a really high metabolism. You process things faster, sure, but you also need more fuel to keep going.
That's a good way to put it. So someone with a high IQ, they might crave constant intellectual stimulation.
Exactly. Which, let's face it, isn't always easy to come by. And that can lead to all sorts of, frustration, boredom, even a sense of isolation.
And it's not just theoretical, right? Didn't Casey mention a real person, someone named Eris?
Oh, yeah. Right, Eris.
Yep.
Casey talked about how she's incredibly intelligent, but she faces these social challenges. She's dealt with bullying and has a tough time, really connecting with people.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that a high IQ doesn't come with a guarantee of a smooth or happy life.
Definitely not. And it makes you think about intelligence in a whole new light, doesn't it?
Mm.
Like it's not just about what's going on in your head. There's this whole other layer of, social skills, emotional intelligence, all those things that really make a difference in having a fulfilling life. But speaking of different ways of looking at intelligence, Carlos's work really fascinated me. I don't know if you're familiar with Jungian psychology.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
It's not really my area of expertise, but it rings a bell. It's all about archetypes and the unconscious mind.
Right, exactly. It's like trying to understand those like deeper patterns and what really drives human behavior. So when Carlos talks about using Jungian psychology to create AI, he's not just talking about building a machine that can like think, but a machine with an actual personality.
Hold on. So instead of AI that crunches numbers or whatever, he wants to create AI that might be like introverted or extroverted, that has its own unique strengths and weaknesses, even tendencies.
Pretty much. We're talking about AI with character.
Okay, now that is just wild. What got him on that path?
He talked about how he was inspired by this idea that different personality types excel in different things, right? Right. Yet you wouldn't want a team full of leaders, right? Or a team of nothing but followers.
You need that balance.
Right. You need that mix of skills, different perspectives to actually make something work. And he thinks the same applies to AI.
So he's like envisioning a future where you've got these AI teams and each member's got its own personality, its own way of approaching a problem.
And they work together, playing off each other's strengths.
That's kind of amazing when you think about it.
It is. And it gets even wilder because then he takes it a step further. He starts talking about designing these AI personalities for specific fields.
Yeah.
Like you could have an AI that's specifically built for healthcare or one for scientific research.
Hold on, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So you're saying like we could have an AI doctor with a calm, empathetic personality and then an AI scientist who's like super curious and maybe a little eccentric.
That's the idea. Each AI tailored for that specific job, for those particular challenges.
Wow, it really makes you wonder though, where does that leave us? I mean, if we're creating AI with specialized personalities and all these skills, what does that mean for, for us? What about the humans working in those fields?
It's the million-dollar question, right?
Mhm.
Some people, they hear this and they're immediately worried about AI taking jobs. But then you got others who see it as this huge opportunity to collaborate.
I can see that. So instead of being afraid of AI, we could see it as a partner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine having an AI teammate that gets you, that complements your strengths and helps you with your weaknesses. It could be amazing.
It's a whole different way of looking at it. It's funny. Casey said something towards the end of their conversation that really stuck with me. She was sort of half joking, but she asked, why didn't we get to build something bought by Google for billions?
Ah,
Hmm.
I love that. It's like, even with how strongly she believes in innate genius, she recognizes that there's more to it.
There's that X factor.
Totally. Like, raw intelligence alone isn't always enough. Maybe the real genius is knowing how to use it.
Being able to apply it, to make it work in the real world.
Right. Dealing with the challenges, building those relationships, and then actually making those brilliant ideas happen.
I like that. So, after spending all this time with Carlos and Casey, it feels like we're walking away with so much more than just a definition of genius.
It's definitely more nuance.
It makes you rethink intelligence, potential, success, especially in this world where AI is becoming more and more advanced every single day.
It really does. So what about you? After this deep dive, has your definition of genius changed at all?
You know what? I think it has. It seems like it might be less about some score on an IQ test and more about using your own unique talents, your own personality to make a real impact on the world. So what do you think, listeners? We'd love to know if this sparked any new thoughts for you. That's it for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.